Merry Christmas, everybody, and welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. Okay, so here we are for another week of fantastic questions. This is the final Kendo Rant of 2022. We are here. This is the closest you're going to get to a Christmas special. We've got some fantastic questions here for you. We'll get to them in just a minute. But don't forget, spread the festive cheer, spread the jolly by like, share, subscribe the video, the YouTube stuff, and most importantly, shop at KendoStar.com. That's what Santa would want you to do, okay? Shop at KendoStar.com. It's the best Kendo equipment website in all of Lapland. All of Lapland, all of everywhere, the entire galaxy. Even Santa shops there. Now, of course, I would say it's that good because I own the place, but everyone agrees with me, so shop at KendoStar.com, okay? Right, let's get into these questions, shall we? Okay, how long before I overheat in this hat? Right, random language question. Any idea why wakigamai doesn't have the no particle in it like all the others? Waki just means side, right? Yeah, waki means, it can mean side, like flank, can mean armpit, but it sort of means side, yeah, in this case. I don't know. It's a good start, isn't it? I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure many people do. I'm sure it was just, that's how it was named in the beginning, and maybe it just sounded more appropriate to the people that were naming the kamae in the beginning, but I don't have a good reason for you, so I don't know. Sorry. Okay, next one. Hi, Fish Sensei. I believe that I understand the reason why you say you should turn as you pass, as that allows you to maintain awareness. So if they chase you or open themselves to another attack, then you can react appropriately, whereas you'd be unable to if your back was turned to them. However, my sensei tells me that although that makes sense, he teaches that in a shiai situation, if your opponent steps to the side as you strike, men for example, allowing you to pass through without deviating, you should continue to accelerate through and turn after a small amount of time. The reason why he says this is because if you turn as your opponent steps to the side or allows you to pass through, he might be ready to do Wazata Chikido, whereas if you do not turn and speed up, continuing to run forward and pass them for a moment before turning, they cannot hit the back of your head or body as you have momentum. You would be able to make distance and turn around before they can chase and reach you to strike. Would you agree with this, or does this go against what you say? I don't mean to doubt or question your judgment on my senseis. I just want to know whether there's a difference in opinion or I'm just misunderstanding. Thanks. Okay, so that's a good question. This is in relation to me obviously ranting all the time about hitting and running off to the distance, right? Look, my problem in the first place, let's just clear this up, is when people hit and then run off into the sunset like this, you know, and with no regard for the other person. Do you know what I mean? So in general, you should keep your eyes on the other person. You should keep your eyes on your opponent, all right? If you hit and show your back to them and they hit you this way on the back of the head, that can still be ippon. That can still be ippon, all right? Because you just stood with your back to them, all right? So first off, you're not safe by just showing your back to the other person, right? Also, what you're describing here, it's not actually that hard to do Hikido on somebody that's like facing sideways. You know what I mean? Like, so say someone hits men at you and you step to the side for some reason, which people don't do, right? But let's say they did, you stepped a little bit to the side. As they pass, it's very easy to do Hikido on somebody that's doing that. Very easy. Okay, you'd strike the front of their door, but again, because of the situation, that would still be considered valid, depending on the context of the strike, of course. So look, I don't think you can really call it Zanshin to hit and then run and just have your back to your opponent for an extended period. Momentarily, sometimes it happens. Sure, all right. But if you made a good strike, then you're not going to receive like the Hikido or something like that. Because you also don't need to give them the space to do that either. You can separate or you can stick to them. There's different ways you can do it. But this sort of hitman, like you do in Uchikomi or Kihon, which is an exercise to improve your ashisabaki and your momentum, it's not appropriate for the tachiai, okay? So I understand what you're saying in this as well. And there's to some extent it makes sense. But my big thing is, you know, this idea of hitting, running off and just abandoning the other person, you know, as if they're, you know, they're not even there. So as much as possible, you have to keep your eyes on. Now, look, I'm not saying that, you know, whoever's told you this is wrong or anything like that. I'm not saying that because I don't know exactly. All I've got is a comment from a YouTube comment. But watch the high level Shiai. All right, watch the high level Shiai, and they'll show you the sort of appropriate amount of passing through or breaking eye contact that still falls within the remit of Zanshin. All right, we already talked about the All Japan Championships final a couple of weeks ago about how there was a breaking eye contact slightly for one of the men's strikes there. Happens. That's why I said in general. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to extend that intentionally for no good reason. Okay? Hope that makes sense. Hello, Fish Sensei. I want to start doing Kendo with some friends when the dojo in town opens again. Good. But I have a few questions about how Kendo works as a trans person. My understanding is that Kendo is very competition focused, and with a whole debate on trans athletes, I want to know how Kendo tournaments, is that the right word, are set up? Is it divided between men's and women's categories, or is there an open category anyone can compete in? If there's a strict gender division, would I likely to encounter problems registering? And finally, if there were complications with competing, is it possible to practice Kendo in the long term without going to competitions? If it's relevant, I'm in the southern United States. Thanks for your time. Okay. The first thing I'd say is I'd definitely encourage you to start Kendo with your friends. I think you'll love it. Kendo is in my experience, a very sort of open and accepting sport or activity, I should probably call it. I know several. I don't like sort of talking about people that I know sort of thing so much, but I do know several trans people who are happily doing Kendo with no problems at all, in that regard at least. And I do think that Kendo is there for you as much as it is for everybody else. The way competitions or tournaments work depends on the area you're in and the competitions that you're at. All right, so you'd have to sort of find out. But many of them, especially these days, tend to either have they tend to be going towards having maybe obviously there is a debate surrounding the situation, you know, but many tournaments tend to have a women's division and an open division is often the way it goes. I think that's an often thing. But in any case, I've never really experienced anyone having real problems. So I think I'm sure it will be open and accepting for you. So I would encourage you to go ahead and do it. I don't think you have to worry about never having to compete. Kendo isn't like totally based on tournaments. Shiai or competition is a very important aspect of Kendo, but I definitely think it would be something you'll be able to experience without any problem whatsoever, and you'll be able to experience it in the same way as everybody else. So I definitely encourage you to take up Shinai and get down to the dojo. It'd be great to have you. Right. Hi, Sensei. I have a question on kote fitting. If memory serves me right, I own 3 pairs of kote since starting Kendo over a decade ago. As I'm slim built and I have relatively long fingers and palms, I noticed that my wrist joint tends to end up at the stitching joint between the tsu and the hard kote button for all of the kotes I've owned. I wonder if that's normal, as I've always thought the wrist should ideally be in the middle of the tsu instead of being at the bottom. Due to my wrist joint being diagonal, where the joint at the thumb's end is higher and slopes down to the joint at the pinky finger end, the joint at the pinky finger end tends to end up at the bottom at the kote button instead of the tsu, somewhat restricting movement. Not sure if you understand what I'm saying. But what I'm trying to ask is whether the wrist joint should be in the middle of the tsu, or if so, does it mean I should go up one size when ordering my next kote to compensate for my longer fingers? As I assume by going one size up, it'll be loose in terms of the width, and is that something you recommend? Actually, if your wrist is at the joint of the tsu, so you've got the kote atama is the fist part. Sometimes they call it the kobushi. Kobushi means fist, atama means head. Sometimes they call it kote gashira. It's just a different reading of the kanji atama. Anyway, and part of that atama is the tsu, which is a kind of part that goes, it's like here, yeah, it's like the wrist part. All right. Now in my kote, actually generally where that joins with the kote button, that's the part you hit, is around my wrist level, but anywhere in there is fine. It doesn't have to be laser precise. Probably going to be a bit controversial here, especially for someone who's sort of in the Borg industry, but like I think people in the West, it's not just people in the West, but like people in the West particularly are a little bit over fussy about the fit of the kote. Like it doesn't have to be laser precise for it to be comfortable and effective, especially as they generally break in and stretch to fit your actual sizes as you use them anyway. You don't need like to be able to do this sort of stuff with your kote on. If you can, great, but actually the main movement is this one, and there's a little bit of this one, but you know, I think people get a little bit hung up on it. But anyway, that being said, no, it sounds to me like it should be fine. I wouldn't recommend ordering a bigger size because you will just end up with them being baggy, like really loose. I don't think it's a problem to have the joint of the, if the joint is well past your wrist, like the joint where the tsu and the kote button intersect is like here, then yeah, you're gonna have a hard time. But if it's like here, then it's not gonna be a problem, I don't think, personally. So especially once you break them in a little bit. But it depends. The thing is, you said you've owned 3 pairs of kote, so it really depends. If you're finding that the kote button is getting in the way of your wrist movement, then yeah, probably you need a bigger size, or maybe even a custom size. I doubt it, but possibly need a custom size. But yeah, sounds to me like from just what you've described, it should be okay. But if you've got concerns, send us some pictures over. We can have a look for you. Next one. Hello, Andy. I was asked this yesterday and never had a proper thought about it. When I started Kendo as motodachi without Borger, we used to give the men target with bended arms to put the shinai where you put your left hand in Jodan no Kamae. Okay. Then we were told to have the arms straight, shinai over the eyes for security issues. In this way, the shinai is closer to kakari. Should motodachi have a little step back to give a target at a better mai? Or kakari, I think you mean kakarite, so the attacker, yeah, should aim to the target with a smaller step? Probably not. Or should he keep a big men step and hit with the middle of his shinai, but aiming for motodachi's head? Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're saying like motodachi without Borger, so you're holding the shinai up. So I guess first you were holding it, I don't know if I can show it, but maybe holding it a bit closer to you. And then you got told to hold it further away so the shinai didn't go over and hit you in the head. So my personal opinion on this, right, is what you're saying is, okay, now you've been told to hold it further away. Should the motodachi move back? Should the kakarite make a smaller step, or should they hit with the middle of the shinai? My personal choice out of that is the motodachi should step back, not as they hit, right, because that's weird, right? What they should do is the kakarite should base the distance on the point that they're striking, not on the actual head position of the motodachi, right? So hold the shinai like I can't do it. I'm not on the film. Yeah, hold the shinai out like this, and then they should move back, and then treat the shinai as the target for where they're striking men, not the actual person who's holding the shinai's head. Shouldn't be where they're basing the distance off. They should be basing the distance off where the position of the shinai is, where they're actually making the strike. So they're making a full size strike, and they're still striking with the correct part of the shinai. Okay, so the motodachi should be stood slightly further back. Okay, next one. Hi Andy, thanks for your videos. I've learned a lot and enjoy your commentary. Lately I've been training, after training I've been feeling my left heel and Achilles tendon has been really sore. Stretching and icing it is a must on most days. It seems that I have to reassess what my footwork is doing. All this time all my weight is being on my back and left foot and calf, especially when I move back doing suburi. Sometimes I have to drop my left heel. But after talking to a fellow Dan, he recommends to try pushing not with your calf so much, but tense your left glute and thigh and push off that. Any other thoughts and advice would be appreciated. Thanks for reading. I think what the problem you've got here is probably you've got an issue with the way your weight is balanced or distributed. I do think you have to drive from your left calf, which is why like really good kendoka, really successful kendoka have got massive calves. But you've probably got too much weight on the back, like towards the back. So there's probably a little bit more pressure on it than should be. And that's why you're having to let the heel go down. Maybe your heel's a little bit too high as well. So bring your heel close to the floor, keep it off the floor, and try to evenly distribute your weight. And if anything, yeah, try to evenly distribute your weight a little bit and take it a little bit off the back leg. It sounds like you've got a little bit too much weight sort of put on your back leg, on your left leg. Is your left leg that does drive your weight, but if it carries the entirety of it, you're going to have a bit of a problem. Hi Andy, I'm very tall. A frequent note that I get is that I should strike from further away. However, every time I do, my opponent seems to see the attack from a mile away and easily counters with ojuwaza. I guess I'm too slow. I find striking from a close distance not only makes them more likely to open since they have an opportunity, but also reduces their chance to react to my attack. I realise that you can't see my kendo, but what are your thoughts on how far away tall people should attack? Also, I like your inclusion of the Reddit thread in your last video. I've seen you on there a few times. I think it'd be great if when you're short on questions, if you ranted about things that were not directly asked, but you wanted to talk about. Happy holidays. Cheers. Okay, cool. So it is a sort of common thing in it, like where they say, oh, the taller you are, the further away you should attack from, which is kind of, yeah. I would change that to be the taller you are, the further away you can attack from. All right. And it's great to be able to attack from further away. It really is. Really is. But you shouldn't be only doing that. All right. So you should be able to attack from lots of different distances and use the distance to your advantage. And if that means that you can attack from far away, then, you know, great. Especially as you get more advanced in Kendo, that becomes more and more important because it means that it's harder for your opponents to penetrate your kamae with their seme, because they're at risk much sooner if you're able to hit from far away. So, but, you know, that's quite high level stuff. So, it is good to learn to hit from far away, but if I were you, I would probably be working on being able to strike from lots of different distances, but don't abandon hitting from far away because it's less successful at the moment. Okay, it's less successful at the moment because you haven't yet got the experience to make strikes successful based off your semi. You're relying on the reactions of your opponent and the speed of your strikes to be able to make the strike successful, which is perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal. It's not criticism, this. All right. But as you progress in Kendo, then that will shift to strikes being created from your impact or your impression onto your opponent through your kamae and your seme. And as you make that shift, being able to hit from further away will become a massive, massive advantage to you. All right. So yeah, you got to mix it up a little bit. Okay, next one. In this pandemic, many people have discovered Kendo for the first time via online content. YouTube and the like are great in spreading the gospel, but as we return to the dojo, are these self-started kenshi are appearing? Is DIY Kendo instruction a double-edged sword, pun intended? Is it more work to undo uncorrected or bad habits? Have you noticed people ordering Borg who have never practiced with others ever? I assume you must get questions like, how do you wear all this stuff? So I see what you're saying. What you're saying is there may be a increase in people who've started Kendo over the internet, sort of watching videos from channels like mine, practicing by themselves and then turning up to a dojo. I mean, there's a few things there. First off, no, we never get people who sort of email us and be like, well, I've never worn Borga before, but I bought it anyway, or something like that. Or not, I've never worn it anymore, but I've never practiced with anyone before, to be honest. So I'm not sure there's a massive amount of that happening. And I'm not sure there's a huge amount of people that have like started Kendo via the internet or sort of had a go and then actually bothered to turn up at a dojo later on. But if they have, great. I think that's fantastic. Anything that sort of increased people coming through dojos, the doors of dojos, is a great thing. And I don't think that there's a lot to undo, to be honest. Because it's not like they've trained so much, it's that much of an ingrained habit. No more than this standard ingrained habits that you get from people anyway. People who've never seen Kendo before. I mean, trying to teach somebody to keep their left foot straight, you know, because they spent their life walking with their toes pointed out, like me. That is a hard thing to undo. I mean, that is a hard thing to correct. But somebody that's like got their elbow a bit bent when they do suburi because they've been learning off the internet, nah. I don't think it's a big deal. I really don't. There's harder things to correct. Hello, Sensei. You have in the past stated the importance of taking the sen. What's the difference between taking the sen and making premature attacks? How, as a grading officer, do you differentiate the two? And two, after a certain stage, I understand that you're expected to draw your partner's attacks rather than focus on making your own. Is it still compatible with the notion of taking the sen? Okay, that's a curious question. So first off, I'm not a grading officer. I've sat on a couple of grading panels in the past. I don't really intend to do it again in the near future, so I don't really want to talk about it too much from that point of view. But taking the sen and making it premature attacks, the difference is between how your movements have influenced your opponent. Yeah. So if you've taken that initiative, something has to happen, right? You get to a point, there's a tipping point in any tachiai, right? Where two of you face off and there gets to a point where something has to happen. And it's the two cowboys in the Wild West facing off in a duel, a gunfight, or whatever you call it. And they've got their hands over the revolver and they're waiting to draw. And it's at that point, there comes to a point where someone has to draw, yeah? Or have you seen the sumo? You must have seen the sumo where the two wrestlers get to the line after they've thrown the salt and they've done their sort of thing, and they get down and they come down to the line, and there's that tension where one of them is gonna start and the other one's gonna react. That's the that's the point at which taking the sen becomes relevant, right? That point where something has to happen, right? And are you the one that draws, or are they the one that draws? Yeah. And if it's premature, then you haven't properly read the situation and you haven't truly taken the sen. Yeah. Even if you thought you had. That's the difficult part of it. It's very difficult. It's very, very deep. Yeah. And it's very advanced. Yeah. And in terms of how would you differentiate the two as a grading panelist? As I said, grading panelist isn't something I'm planning to do going forward that much, but at least for the next year or so. But it's quite obvious when you look at it from the outside. Well, the same as being Shimpan, you can see the context of what's going on between the two players. The Shimpan can see how the two players are interacting with each other. All right, so we can see if it's two players just randomly flinging attacks out at each other, or if there's some kind of story unfolding. And that's the sort of Shiai that's not only easy to Shimpan, but that's like, if you watch the All Japan Championships, it's all that. It's pretty much all that, because that's how that's how Ippon, the real Yuko Datotsu, are really created. You know what I mean? So in terms of after a certain stage, you're expected to draw your partner's attacks rather than focus on making your own. I don't know if that's true. I think drawing your opponent's attacks becomes part of the equation as well as making your own, right? But it's never a case of just acting by yourself, which after you get to 4th Dan is where you need to start studying that. Whether you're acting off like your own impulses, or whether you are engaging with your partner and that what's playing out is happening with intention. Yeah, that's and for a reason. I think that's the big difference. Okay, next one. As the year draws to an end, it's often a time for reflection and new goals. What do you feel you have achieved this year, and what are your plans and goals for 2023? That's an interesting one. So this year, I think this year's been a really successful year in lots of ways. From KendoStar, of course, it's been super. Thanks to you guys. But we've been able to make, turn things around from the difficult times we've had. We've been able to grow the business, grow our team, start to provide a sort of a good working, not just environment, working life for our staff, which I think is a really important thing. In terms of Kendo, I think there's lots of things that I've been working towards. My Kendo goals, my personal Kendo goals, they're not the sort of things that you sort of get sorted in a year. To be honest, the stuff I'm working on is going to take me the next probably 15 years. But I would say that one of the biggest achievements that I've made this year, which I've been very, very happy with, was launching, organizing and running my own Kendo seminar, the How to Win Shiai seminar. That was a massive success. It was really, really great. It was a great event. Had a great time doing it. It seemed to be really, really popular. Got loads of great feedback. So yeah, I'd say that was one of the biggest achievements. For next year, I want to start to do a little bit of. I want to really work towards getting through my next Dan grade. It's not next year. I've got another couple of years before I can do it, but I want to feel like in a more, like by this time next year, I'd like to feel I'm like in a more comfortable position towards taking it. I want to challenge myself a lot more in 2023. I'm going to enter some Shiai. Not as a serious competitor, but just for my own benefit. I haven't done Shiai in about 3 years, which I'm feeling is detrimental. So I'm going to take some opportunities to do Shiai now that tournaments are starting back up. And I really want to join the Kyoto Taikai. The Kyoto Taikai it's been a lifelong since I started Kendo. It's been a big goal of mine. Very, very dear sensei to me was often semi often participating in it. And he's since passed away, and I'd like to kind of unofficially, of course, sort of carry the torch, as it were, in memory of that sensei by representing the UK in the Kyoto Taikai. So yeah, I think they're my my sort of goals. We'll see how I get on. Hi Fish Sensei, can you please give advice about Fumikiri and how to improve it? Thanks in advance. Practice is the only answer. There isn't, unfortunately, I know it's not the I know you'd like me to be able to say, oh well, just do this exercise and it'll get a lot better. It doesn't really work like that with these sort of things. Fumikiri is the pushing from the left leg. You have to just keep focusing on it. Now, the one thing I would say is that one piece of advice I was given once by one of my senseis in Japan was that when you're pushing forward for your Fumikiri, you should keep your hips square. And one way you can imagine it is if you were throwing a basketball or a ball straight forward as you were doing it. Okay, so you wouldn't throw it upwards or downwards, you'd throw it straight. Yeah, and that's the feeling that you should have as you launch your Fumikiri. Okay. Next one. Hi Sensei, on my run up to Nidan, I'm working hard on my right hand. I'm not having a hard time with gripping too tightly, but I'm finding that being left-handed, my right hand just moves faster on my swings. So I'm lifting the shinai and swinging it with more right hand, even though I'm just more or less cradling it in my fingers. Is there anything that can help with this? Thanks for another great year of Kendo advice and rants. All the best to you and your family this holiday season. Thank you very much. Yeah, loads of suburi and loads of kirikaishi and loads of uchikomi. Just, because swinging the shinai with the right hand is not the most efficient way of using the shinai. You will get tired faster, and you will not use your shinai effectively. You'll break more shinai by doing so. So you have to really concentrate on using your left hand, but you need to just swing the shinai more until you're sort of, your body doesn't want to swing it with the right hand anymore. All right. You have to really concentrate on it. And I do some katate suburi as well. So one hand just with the left. Okay. It's a lot of practice. That's the only thing, unfortunately. Hi, Fish Sensei. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Here's my dilemma. When I'm going for Dabana men and I men strikes, most often the opponents seem to be in my center and hit my men in the correct part. Whereas my shinai seems to go off to the side to their men. Even if I strike first, I'm sort of pushed out of the way. Any suggestions of how to improve? Yeah, this is because they're beginning the strike before you are. That doesn't necessarily mean they're moving the hands before you are, but they're probably moving their body before you are. That's 100% why that's happening. All right, so they're starting to launch before you're starting to launch. So the one that starts first hits first, sort of pretty much all the time. Okay, so even though you feel like you're striking first, I don't think you are. If they're pushing you off the center, probably they're hitting you first. All right. It's not a great answer again, but it's just going to be practice and practice and practice. I think I remember, I didn't include your name on this, but I do remember you saying that you're third cue, so I wouldn't worry too much. All right. I men, Dabana men, don't worry. Just keep practicing it. Keep practicing it. Keep practicing it. Keep practicing. Okay, next one, Handy. I hope you're having a fantastic holiday. My question relates to dojo togetherness. In my dojo, we have a tradition of going out for drinks and nachos after the last evening session of the month. I was wondering, 1, do you have any traditions with members of your dojo meeting outside of class to build relationships outside of Kendo? 2, how important do you see these kinds of relationships being when it comes to retaining students in the long run? Thank you for all you do in the Kendo community, and I wish you the best for 2023. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think these things are really good. These sort of social gatherings that people do. We don't do it all that much in my dojo. My dojo's a little bit different. Because there's a couple of reasons. One is we don't practice near anywhere that's like that, and I have kids that I take to the dojo, so I can't really be taking them to bars and stuff afterwards, you know, especially Kendo is on a school night. But you know, when you do it, when you know, when you can do that sort of thing, I do think it's really good. It's great for building the atmosphere, and I think it does help retain students. I'd say that what we do in our club is we'll try and do something maybe like at Christmas or something like this. We had last week, instead of our usual practice, we had a Christmas party instead at our dojo, which was great. All our members sort of met up at a restaurant. We had a great meal together. And sort of socialize that way. I do think that sort of thing's great, and I would like to do it more, that sort of thing, but it's a bit difficult from a practical sense in my specific dojo. But I do think it's a great thing that if you can do that in your dojo, you should do it. Definitely. Hello, Andy Sensei. Merry Christmas. Only one question, as I understand small men is, while moving forward, raise both your arms slightly from the shoulder and use your left wrist as the center, then turn in shinai downward to draw apart a circle. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. My question is, what's the ideal height as chin level, throat level, chest level for the left hand to start to turn downwards as a start to strike process? I'd say about chest level. Chin level's too high. Your left hand should never get to chin level or throat level. Like, when I'm doing my men strike, my left hand is like around this level, around solar plexus, sternum area, middle of my chest. You don't want it too high. All right. That's what I'd say. Next one. Merry Christmas. I hope Santa will be good to you. I hope so too. Hope he shops at KendoStar again. Slightly shorter comment this week. As I progress, how many sets of Bolga would be an ideal number? A set per practice, and by set, we wouldn't necessarily need a complete spare set, only men and kote. Would you suggest starting by getting spare kote first, then a men? Also, I signed up to 100 Suburi a day group for extra accountability. How would you recommend breaking that down? My main focus has been 100 Joge Buri as I work on keeping my swing straight. Looking forward to the new year. Cool. So it depends how often you practice. All right. If you practice once a week, you only need one set of Bolga. All right. If you practice twice a week, probably it's worth having an extra set of kote. All right. And if you practice 3 times a week, maybe you could get away with one extra set of kote, but you're probably better with another set of kote and at least another men as well. And you don't have to, it'll just wear out faster. You know what I mean? So, and after that, it's kind of up to you. I mean, if you're practicing 3 times a week or more, it's probably worth having more than one men. Especially if you're practicing close together in the week so that it can properly dry out. If you're practicing like, I don't know, Monday, Thursday and Sunday. Yeah, but then you see Sunday to Monday, you're going to be using it twice in a row. See? Or even if it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you could probably get away with just one men. I definitely want 2 sets of kote. But you are going to wear out a men pretty fast if you're using it 3 times a week like that. So yeah. So if you're practicing 3 times or more a week, then you might want 2 sets. And after that, it's up to you, innit? Do you know what I mean? It's like, Bolga sets are a bit like lots of things. In that you don't always get a second one because you need it. Yeah? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that to try and sell you Bolga. I'm not. I'm just saying that as someone who loves Bolga. And I have more Bolga sets than practices I do a week, I'll tell you that. I have more Bolga sets than practices I do in a month. So anyway, right, last one. Hi, Andy. I have a friend who's interested in Kendo, but she lost her left arm to a moose attack several years ago. Wow, I didn't see that coming. How would someone with only a right arm practice and train for Kendo? It's definitely possible. One of the best senseis I ever met. He wasn't missing his left arm, but he was disabled in that he was unable to use it, and he only used his right arm. And in fact, I've met several Kenshi that are doing Kendo with just one arm. In fact, I did my Godan Shinso. When I did my Godan Shinso, one of my partners was I think he was missing his left arm from about the I think he was missing his left hand, but I didn't even notice. I literally didn't even notice, and he passed the Godan, no problem at all. So there's lots of ways to do it. It's a challenge though, and especially it's a challenge for the sensei too. But there's lots of ways to do it. There's lots of ways to do it. As I say, I didn't notice the guy that I did my Godan exam was missing his left hand because he did Chudan, just he used his right hand instead of his left. It's possible, but that's a very refined technique. And this is someone that did Kendo all their life in Japan, by the way. So they've obviously got access to senseis that lots of us don't. The other sensei that I knew, he did a kind of modified Jodan where he held the shinai. It was like an opposite Jodan, so he held the shinai at the bottom of the scar with his right hand, and he did it this way. That's certainly a way to do it as well. Where there's a will, there's a way. Let's put it that way. All right. So if they really want to do Kendo, they'll find a way to do it. And yeah, I'm sure they'll be able to enjoy it. Okay. So yeah, that's that. There we go. That's the end of the show. That's the end of the year. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching Kendo RANT all year through 2022. I will be in Japan next week for a few weeks. I'll try to put some content up over the new year or in the new year as much as I can. I will be very busy. I've got a lot of stuff going on with KendoStar over there. We've got some very exciting stuff for KendoStar coming next year, which is this trip to Japan is partly for. So yeah, watch this space regarding that. But do forgive me if there's a sort of intermittent uploading going on. In terms of scheduling of videos, I'll do my best to keep content coming though. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for a great 2022. I wish you all an absolutely fantastic and wonderful 2023. And I'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.